Now, in this video, I want to talk about all those tricks that you need to be aware of as a new immigrant in the US. The US is full of tricks, right? And those tricks don't like immigrants. See, I'm not making a political statement. I'm just saying that the US financial system is very, very complicated. And as a new immigrant to the US, you want to be able to make sure that you understand the different ways that the system could trap you in poverty, literally. I'm not going to get into too much detail. This is just really an introductory video, and based off, the responses to it and what people want to hear, I would do other ones, right? So for this one, we're going to talk about the 20 things, you're in for a treat, for the 20 things you need to make sure you pay attention to in the US financial system. Now, who's this video for? This video is for anyone who's recently moved to the US or considering moving to the US, right? A lot of people, I've talked about a couple of these things on my different social media platforms, and people have told me that it's also relevant to Canada, places like Canada, like the UK. To be honest, I don't know for sure because I've lived in the UK, but it was for a very brief period, less than 2 years. And then I'm not really sure about the similarities, but this is really focused on the US. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot watch it if you are an immigrant to other countries. Yes, because a lot of countries are probably similar. But yeah, this is really, really US centric. So let's get into it. The first thing you want to see, I have a notebook because this is very important information, right? And I take you very seriously. You're taking time to watch this video. I take you really seriously, so I came prepared. I came with all the receipts. So just sit back, relax, and then let's have fun for the next, 20, 25 minutes. Okay, so the first one is there's this bank that you're supposed to avoid at all costs. See, because of liability issues, I'm not gonna mention the name of the bank, but this bank's logo is the same as the color of my mic. That's all you need to know. And honestly, once you know that, that's all. Just run away. They are horrid. They are a horrid way for you to start your financial life in the US. And as I go through a lot of these things, you understand that your bank is a very, very critical piece of your financial life in the US. So you also want to make sure that you are getting into a bank that you have, a bank that you can build a solid relationship with. And to be honest, when I first moved to the US, my one relative I had in the US told me and said, see, be wary of this bank. Make sure you open a community bank or a credit union. And I was like, what's credit union? What's that? That was I want this bank. They're shiny, they're hip, they're all of that. And then, they showed me paper. If you're Nigerian, you probably understand what that means. But what it just means is that it was a horrible, horrible experience. So what you want to do is make sure you look for community banks in your area. Those ones are a lot easier to deal with. Or look for credit unions. Those are the kind of banks that you want to actually start off your life with in the US. First of all, they don't have all these crazy fees. And then they're a lot more, they're a lot more accommodating when it comes to giving you really attractive credit facilities. So yes, you want to look for credit union. That's the first one. Then the second one is, I'm coming from Nigeria, I was coming from Nigeria where it was like 12 bucks, 12 naira. It wasn't, I don't know if you can even find things to buy for 12 bucks in Nigeria. So I kind of like had that same mentality where I was like, 12 bucks is not a lot of money in the US. This is probably, really going like really elementary, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand the fact that every single dollar, literally, see, I'm not the kind of person that likes to count the dollar. I actually don't even like it. I don't like, pinching pennies or things like that. But the US kind of forces you to pinch pennies. If not, you'll just find out that a lot of the money that you're earning is just going into waste, right? So you want to ensure that you are keeping as much money as you can legally keep, and then you are at the same time, growing a healthy financial portfolio. You don't want to, because for a lot of people I know who move to the US, they probably don't want to live in the US forever, right? They just want to leave, make some money and move on. But if you're not careful with your finances, what's going to happen is you're going to get trapped and you won't be able to live out your dream. You get what I mean? So you don't want to come here and then just get trapped. Doesn't make any sense. You get what I mean? So you want to make sure that, I say you get what I mean a lot, so you'll get used to that. You want to make sure that you understand that every single dollar counts. So when it's $12.99, it's never $12.99. Never round things down. Always round it up. So $12.99 is $15. And I'm telling you that because it's going to be tax. So it's not $13. Nope. It's probably going to be more than that because you're going to pay tax when you get to the till. Now, bank overdraft. This is something I have to drop my notebook. You see, when I first started, when I thought about doing this video, it was really from my experience with my bank. So I had gone on vacation and then my bank charged me $1,000 in overdraft fees. Which is really, really crazy when you think about it, because they also had another account of mine, a linked account. So it was like savings current. They had my savings account, which had like 10 grand in it, or 10 grand plus. And then they had my the credit accounts, not the credit account, the current accounts, which was what was attached to the card. And then I asked them, I'm like, guys, I have, roughly 10 grand with you. You are charging me overdraft fees for things as little as $5, $6, all those kind of things. Why didn't you just take out money from my savings account and then, cover this overdraft? And they said, oh, because you did not give us permission to do that. And I was like, oh, okay. But did I give you permission for the overdraft? And they were like, no, but that's you are automatically enrolled in our overdraft protection program. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I'm also a lawyer, but nothing I say here is legal advice. So I said, this does not make sense. It doesn't even sound legal to me. So I go and I check and I find out that actually there's a law that says that except in certain scenarios as to what they call ACH and certain recurring bills, a bank is not permitted to automatically enroll you in overdraft protection without your express consent. So this bank telling me that, so I get to them, I'm like, this is actually illegal. And they refunded, the entire thing. And so I've been meaning to do this video for a while. And I said, you know what, Mo, this is a push you need. Just go record. See, this is not a professional YouTube setting. This is my first YouTube video, but I was like, you know what, you need to do this video once and for all. So that was it. But let me explain the way overdraft works in America. So the way overdraft works is that with a lot of banks, right? So when you swipe your card, like where I'm coming from is Nigeria. If you swipe your card and there's no money on your card, you get insufficient funds, right? That's what it will tell you. And we're okay with it. We're like, no sufficient funds today. Okay, let's move on. You know what I mean? But here in America, they're like, no sufficient funds, no worries. We're going to cover you. We're going to overdraft. You're going to give you an overdraft protection. They cover you. So each time they cover you, the bank charges vary, but it's around $35. So what that means though is if you swipe your card and then you pay for something that you want to pay for something that is $5 and you have only $4 in your account, and you have a balance of like $1, a deficit of $1, the bank can, and most times they actually would charge you $35 over that extra $1. So what that means is that, so every time I swiped my card when I was on holiday, because what happened was I had paid for a ticket twice, right? So I'd made a large purchase of of $1,500 twice. So that was $3,000 taken out of my account. I mean, I'm not like a money bag or anything. So if $3,000 is taken out from my current account, the money will get into red. so $3,000 was taken out of my account, and then I called the airline to say, see, I booked this ticket twice. Can you, oh no, that's not what was happening. I was paying for an upgrade. So I paid for the upgrade twice. So I was like, okay, I paid for this upgrade twice. Can you kindly, refund the second one? And they're like, sure, we're going to refund it immediately. But what these banks do is that they're very smart. When they see that something like that's happening, because they see it clearly, it's a double transaction. I don't know what they do, but they don't revert. I mean, they have like a way where they, how they post transactions, and they always make sure that they post transactions in a way that you run into overdraft. Because it really and truly, I just stopped the airline and refunded my 1.5, right? And then what I do, and I'll get into this, sometime during the course of this video, I don't use one account for all my expenses. So all my small expenses I have on one account, my big expenses I have on another account. The reason for that is for me to be able to make sure that I calculate how much I'm spending. You get what I mean? So this was my account for small things. So I had a 1.5, cap for a month, which in my mind was like, okay, I just spend it for everything less than $50. So I mean, I never had any real reason to have more than $1,500 in the accounts. But I even did them a favor. I had $3,000 in the accounts. And then this thing happened where the airline billed me twice. So I called the airline. I'm like, guys, can you revert this $1,500. And they're like, sure, we're going to do it immediately. So they did that, but somehow my bank didn't post it. So for every other transaction I'd swiped, I'd bought coffee for $4.99 from Starbucks. And then they had charged me, an overdraft fee of $35. They were just charging me overdraft fees anyhow, And then by the time I got back, I was like, I have overdraft fees of over $1,000. What in the world is happening? So that's when I went to the bank, and that's when what happened. So you want to be careful with overdraft fees. What you even want to do is, what these banks do is that they bank on you not knowing what the law is. And it's true, you cannot know all the law, but that's why you're watching this video, and it's a good thing that you know what the law is now. If your bank has automatically enrolled you in any overdraft protection, write them a letter and tell them. I'll link what the law is below in the comments, so you can quote the law for them, show them, tell them that, see, you guys have done this and it is not legal if you don't refund my money. Because that's what I did to them. I told them there and then in the bank, and they refunded every single thing. In fact, somebody was telling me that I should have written the letter so that they would give me some compensation. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I didn't do that. So I was like, and my bank is really nice. They're really nice people, aside when they're charging me overdraft fees. So, overdraft fees, you want to be careful. Make sure you tell your banks that you don't want to enroll in any overdraft protection. Expressly tell them. Send them an email, right? That you don't want to enroll in any overdraft protection. And if you are enrolled in anything by error, because sometimes when you open an account, they just front load you like 1 million documents at the same time. So you're like, oh, if I automatically enrolled in any of this overdraft, I don't want it. Can you take it out, right? Send them an email. Make sure there's a paper trail. Send a letter to their branch. It's not going to take you anything. Just go and drop it one day at the branch, just so you have it that you've told them that they should not give you overdraft protection. You don't want it. You have protection from the Lord. You don't need you don't need their protection. So tell them, that you don't want it, right? And they should take it off. And if they still do it and automatically enroll you, then, check the law that is in the description below, and then send them a letter and tell them that, see, if you guys are not careful, I'm going to sue you. America is a very litigious society. So, people mostly would behave when you mention that you will sue, especially when you have a right to. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that you should go about telling people that you'll sue them. I'm just saying that if you have the law on your side, you should always feel free and confident to assert your rights. So now, like I said, so I have a separate bank account for my large purchases, and then, I have one for my smaller purchases. The reason for that is that there's so many expenses, but I want to be able to keep track. So that's the only reason why I do that. So things like if I'm remodeling my house, furniture and all of that, I put it in one bank, to one bank account. I personally am not a fan of credit cards. I don't use credit cards. See, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use credit cards. I'm just saying that me generally, I'm just like, you know what, I use credit for other things because I'm a business person. I use credit facilities for business. I don't use credit facilities for my own personal day-to-day life. I don't need it. Also because I don't really have big purchases like that. I mean, aside food and transportation, I don't really have any big purchases like that. You know what I mean? So for people who have big purchases in their personal life, they would use credit cards, but I don't, right? So if I'm traveling, I mostly, would save up for my trip, and then I just spend the money I already have. Not to say there's anything wrong with using credit cards. Credit cards, having access to credit is one of the beauties of America as a country. So what you just need to do is know how to use it responsibly. Get me? Okay. So let's move to the next one. So the next one is if you want to build credit, because speaking of credit cards, people will tell you that, oh, you need to build credit anyways. And that's true. You actually need to build credit, but there are other ways to build credit. You can have something that is called a secured credit card. What I mean by that is you are just spending your money. So you go to the bank and tell them that your bank and tell them that you want a secured credit card. And then you put money on it and you just keep spending it. Now, what's the difference? Why can't you just spend from your debit card? The thing is, when you spend from your debit card, right, nobody is reporting it to any of the credit bureaus. So what that means is that you're just spending money, and then, because what credit scores are is basically saying that you are a responsible member of society and that you use credits well, right? But so you buy stuff and you pay for them. That's basically what credit is saying. But if you are not using a credit card to make your purchases, then there's no way for anybody to gauge that you are credit worthy. You know what I mean? So that's why you need to play in the system for the system to gauge you as credit worthy. Not using, some people will think, oh, but if I don't use credit at all, it means I'm credit worthy. No, if you're not using credit at all, it doesn't mean, it means that you probably have a low credit score. So you need to participate in the credit system for you to have a high credit score. My own credit score is nearly perfect, but it took work. But what you need to do is make sure that you make sure that you are looking for creative legal ways to build your credit. So one of them is getting a secured credit card as an immigrant, another as a new immigrant to the country. Another thing you can also do is try to ask your landlord, especially if you live in an apartment that is managed by property managers. If that's the situation, then you are most likely to be able to ask your landlord if your utilities, right, can be reported on your credit reports. Now, only do this if Anita, only do this if you are paying your rent on time. So if you're like, if you're not paying your rent on time, they can report you to the credit bureau that you're not paying your rent on time. So you want to make sure that you are actually, paying your rent on time. And then you're like, okay, fine. Can you report me paying my utilities as part of, as to the credit bureaus? Not all apartments will do it, but some apartments will do it. So that's another way for you to build credits. Now, another thing that some people will tell you is that stock credit cards. My own personal advice is stay away from stock credit cards. Now, let me tell you, what are stock credit cards? So Idris, imagine that you enter into a store and then you like this top. So you're like, man, this looks really nice and all of that. How much is it? They're like $25. You're like, oh, cool. So you go to the till and then Rachel, the person at the till, she has Rachel on her name badge. And Rachel is like, hi, do you like that? Is that all you want today? And you're like, yeah, sure, that's all I want. It's really cool. She's like, oh, that's such a very pretty color. I'm sure it will look really good on you. And you're like, yeah. Do you want 25% off today? And then you're like, sure, 25% off? Yes, of course. And then she's like, okay, I'm just going to have your information. Let me just type your information in. And then, hey, you've entered it. Do not. Idris, can you hear me? Do not. So what you're going to do now is you're going to say, Rachel, thank you very much. But you know what? I don't need a store card today. Because, first of all, for a couple of store cards, they pull your credit. What that means is that they would send, a notice to the credit bureau that you're actually asking for. Is that how to pronounce that word? Yeah, but we're just going to deal with it however I'm pronouncing it. So you're going to tell them they're going to send a report to one of the credit bureaus and tell them that this person has applied for credit, and the more you apply for credit, the more it affects your credit score. And we can talk about that later on. I don't want to get into the weeds of that. But also, aside that, even if they don't pull your credits, because there are two kinds of pull. There's hard pull and the soft pull. Again, we'll talk about that later on. Don't worry about that for now. But another thing is also that those credit cards, because, it's a shirt you bought for $25, right? You get 25% off. And then so you forget, you're very easy to forget. Idris, you're going to forget. So basically what you want to do, though, is make sure that for your small purchases like that, you don't need a stock credit card for a $25 shirt. If you don't want to pay cash for it, come back when you can pay cash. See, I'm not being judgmental here. I'm just trying to tell you that as a new immigrant, you need to be really, really careful. You don't need stock credits. You don't need stock credit cards, right? See, there are situations where people are desperate or they don't have any of that option, and then they use stock credit cards to build their credits. But I'm saying if you have a choice, you don't necessarily have to do that. If you can get secured credit lines, a secured credit card, and then also talk to your landlord, just like I had mentioned, you don't necessarily need a stock credit card. In fact, those stock credit cards, what happens is that sometimes they're even they're like the interest rates are like really, really high. So what happens is, you're just paying ridiculous interest rates for something you probably could do without in the first place. So no to stock credit cards, right? Because once you miss a payment, it gets on your credit report. And that's another thing you want to do. You don't want to miss payments in America. Missing payments in America is like 1 ticket to hellfire. So you don't want to miss your payments. You want to make sure that all your payments are in time. See, have multiple alarms everywhere telling you when a payment is due. What I do is make sure that all my payments are due on the last day of the month. I try my best to tell them that, okay, can I have this payment due on this date, on so and so date, and then that way I know that once it's the end of the month, these are the payments that I'm supposed to make, and I try to just keep my payments to be as minimal as possible. So taxes, make sure you understand every deduction. In fact, I would say that as an immigrant, make sure you get a professional, either a lawyer or a tax professional, to help you to understand your tax situation. Make sure you also get a tax professional or a lawyer who has worked with, immigrants or people that have recently moved, well, immigrants as well, or people, that are in the same sort of situation as you are. So a good place to start will be referrals from family, friends, colleagues, that kind of thing. Make sure you work with a professional, understand every deduction that is due to you, and, make sure you take it. Pay your bills on time. I said that before. It's, almost criminal not to pay your, no, I don't mean criminal like a crime. I just mean, hyperbole. So do not spend too much on housing. So another thing with housing is that I looked at the statistics, and over 31% of people in America spend over 30% of their income on housing. For the first 2 years when I lived in America, I lived with roommates, right? So I lived with roommates because also I was a broke student, so I couldn't even afford my own apartment or anything like that. So I lived with roommates. But the thing about living with roommates is that, it's annoying, I understand. But if you're a new immigrant to a country, you want to make sure that you have your housing situation to the it's comfortable and you don't have to splurge. I mean, if you have money, Alice, no problem, do it. But I'm just saying that if you are, coming in and you're just trying to find your feet and all of that, if you're in that sort of situation, kind of like the situation I was in when I first moved to America, you want to make sure that you are spending not more than 30% of your income on rent. In fact, what I do right now, I'm now at a stage where I'm like, if my 1 month salary cannot cover the rent for an entire year of a building, it's too expensive for me. But me, I can just be extreme, right? Because it's not really possible in the US. I mean, if you want to live in a $1,000 apartment, right? So that means you have to earn at least $12,000 in a month. Not everybody can do that, right? But me, that's my own personal rule. That's just the way it is. And then I am just like, yeah, this is it, right? So if I cannot, so I live in a very small apartment right now, but I'm fine because it's just me, right? My apartment is okay, but that's what I've cut my coat according to my size. So that's what is happening, right? Like, so I'm like, if my 1 month salary cannot cover the entire rent for 1 year, I'm not gonna do that, right? So that's kind of like where I'm at with my own apartment. But like, I don't want to give you financial advice, but all I just want to say is that it is prudent not to spend more than 30% of your annual income on rent. Another thing is also read the fine print, right? Make sure you read the fine print of everything that you are going to sign. Don't sign something and just be like, oh, hit send. Make sure you read the fine prints. Another one I'm going to talk about is learn to cook. Now, this one might be a bit controversial, but the truth is, learn to cook. When I first moved to America, I couldn't cook, and that's the truth. But it's funny because after a while, I learned from YouTube and I got to cook so much so that I started cooking for my friend. And I'm like, oh yeah, give me money. I just cooked for you. But yeah, and then, they will give me, they're like, yeah, let me just cash up you. No problem. The food was sweet. So basically, buying food in America is not only expensive. Eating out in America is not only expensive. It's not particularly healthy. When I first moved to the US, I gained about 15 to 20 kg, which is quite a lot. I mean, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with, gaining weight or anything like that. I liked it at the end of the day because, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I have curves in the right places. I loved it. But like, it was just so rapid and I knew that it was because I wasn't eating right. So it depends on you and how you think about your food. If you want your food fresh and things like that, I would advise that you try as much as possible to cook at home. See, I know that there are so many social and economic factors that go into why people can cook and people cannot cook. So I'm not being, judgmental here. I'm just saying, if you can afford to learn how to cook simple, basic dishes, just do it, right? Put a salmon here, put a salad there. You don't need jack chicken somewhere else. You're kind of good. See, it's once in a while, eat out and all of that. But eating out being your 100% feeding strategy in America, you're not going to make it. I'm serious. So now I've gotten to a point where I do two things, right? Because even if I know how to cook, I don't necessarily like to cook. So I order food in bulk from Nigerian chefs. I want to do a quick shout out to All I Do Is Cook. See, All I Do Is Cook is one of the people that you must know when you're moving to America. But I'm serious though. Really good Nigerian food. This is not an ad. I just really like the company. Everybody else that I have referred this company to has told me that this company is amazing. The food is great. So it's allidoiscook.com. Order from them. Tell them you watch most YouTube video, and then maybe they'll give you a discount. But still, I either do that or I just get a private chef and I say, okay, this is what I want to cook. See, people, when I say private chef, people think that, oh my God, it sounds so bougie and expensive. Not really, because what I do with my private chef, for instance, I pay him per hour, and then I already know what the meals are. So I go, like, he does the grocery shopping, and then I tell him what I want to do, and then he just does it. He's also my friend who's just in culinary school, kind of like helping me out. But I know that they're probably, I checked, and then I did see that there are different services in different cities. You mostly find them in big cities. So if you're in like cities like New York, DC, Seattle, all those kind of cities, you can get private chefs. So my private chef, who's my friend, I'm sure he's going to watch this and he's amazing. So he, comes, cooks for me sometimes, and I just put it in the fridge, or all I do is cook. But most of the time, see, I'm very basic what I eat. I eat a soup here, I eat a salad here, and all of that. I still eat out, I wouldn't lie, but I'm just trying to say that you should not make it your 100% strategy because, hey, dear immigrants, you're not going to make it. So the next one is be vigilant. Before you click or accept anything, right? Make sure that you read it. I've said this before, but I'm saying it again because that's how important it is. So let's just move on really quickly. Be careful. Do not sign long-term contracts that you cannot get away from. So all those things that say we're going to be yoked together for 5 years. No. You shall not be unevenly yoked. Abi, how do they say it? Yes. Do not be unevenly yoked with anybody. So look for the holes in long-term contracts because there are typically holes on there. So make sure that you are not setting yourself up for failure. Before you sign any long-term contract, if it's looking too complicated, make sure you get legal advice. This is very important. Very, very important. Do not just sign long-term contracts in the US just like that. Don't do that, please. So another thing you want to do is be careful of something that is called the cloak of legitimacy. I talk about this where it's like you get a letter, right? And then the letter is saying, yes, the letter looks legitimate. It even looks legit. The way it's written is not a scam and you're not sure. So you're like, oh my God, you're afraid. Maybe it's like somebody saying that they're going to sue you for something that you did or you didn't do, or, whatever it is, or a landlord saying they're going to take you to court or whatever it is. See, I'm not saying that those things are not legal. I'm not saying that those things cannot be managed. All I'm just saying is that there's something that is called the cloak of legitimacy, where in the US, people kind of like just rub things around and make it look like, it's really legitimate and it's not necessarily so. So you want to make sure that you double check. If you get a letter and it looks like, oh my God, I'm not really sure what this is, make sure you get a professional. Another thing that I would say is make sure you read your mail, even junk, because a lot of important stuff goes into your physical mail, right? So a lot of laws in the US mandate people to send notices, very important notices, via mail. your mail is 99.9% full of junk, but it doesn't mean that you just toss it out. I have a day I dedicate to make sure I go through my mails. So make sure you go through your mails, because those are very, very important, right? I'm going to talk about privacy in a bit, maybe in another video, where I talk about how you can prevent yourself from getting, I see we're nearly 30 minutes and I want us to close this. I want to keep it under 40 minutes. Let's see if we can do that. So you want to make sure that you dedicate some time to going through your mail, and make sure you go through everything, right? And then shred things that you should not shred all the junk. So you don't want your address and all of that out there. Like I said, I'm going to talk about how you can prevent, to the best extent possible, junk mail. So it's not really 100% possible, but I am a very private person, so I can just tell you, I can talk about some of the things I did to prevent, junk mail, because it just really annoyed me. No fixed cost and flexible cost. If you are a Nigerian, you probably like to haggle. I like to haggle a lot. I'll give you an example. When I was moving from my house, so this guy, this company had quoted to help me move some furniture for $300, and I was like, okay, not bad, whatever. So when the guys came, I looked at them and I was like, okay. It was one guy and two guys and one woman, and I was like, so I was just wondering, can I negotiate? Can you do this for 250? I did know that the company quoted 300, but I was just wondering if you can do 250. And then they were like, sure. And I was like, okay, 200. And they're like, nah. I was like, 230. They're like, nah, 250. I was like, okay, fine. So I paid the 250, but at least that was $50. I, just put it in my pocket. So basically, you want to make sure that you know the difference between fixed cost and flexible cost. There's still some wiggle room in certain situations, and maybe, I'm promising all these videos I'm going to do, but maybe I'll do a video and just giving you some examples of some costs that are fixed and some costs that are flexible. So another thing you also want to know, I didn't talk about bank overdrafts. You can also dispute them, or you can ask them for them to be taken off. Most times, most banks would agree to take them off. If it looks good to be true, it is probably not a good one. Health insurance. I'm telling you, please. You want health insurance. Paul, you want to get your health insurance. I'm serious. Your health insurance and insurance generally is one of those things you don't want to mess with in America. See, depending on where you're coming from, in Nigeria, insurance is not, it used to be a big deal before, but uptake is really low. So it's not really a massive industry like that, but in the US it is, and for good reason. So if you're a business person and a service provider, you want to get things like liability insurance and things like that, and maybe, cross fingers, I'll do another video on different type of insurances. Is that what insurance is? I guess so. That you can get insurance. It doesn't really matter. You get the point, right? So, the different kind of insurances that you can get. And then, but your car insurance, I don't drive, but people who drive have told me that obviously is very important. I don't drive because I haven't owned a car since I moved out of Nigeria. I've always lived in big cities since I moved out of Nigeria, and then all the cities I've lived in, I've just never needed a car. So yeah, but it depends on where you are. And then somebody gave me a tip about cars, saying that, see, if you want to buy a car, make sure you buy a used car. For sometimes you can have really good bargains on cars with really low mileage. So that's, if you want to get a car, that's probably something you want to think about. It was someone on Twitter who told me about it. So yeah, that's it about insurance. Make sure you get health insurance. See, I'm sure you see a lot of videos of people giving birth in the cars in America. You think it's by chance, because they're like, how is it coincidental that so many people are giving birth in cars? It's because of ambulance fees. Ambulance fees are very expensive. And a lot of people who don't have insurance, which again is also a systemic issue in terms of, systemic poverty and racism in the country, why a lot of people cannot afford, proper insurance. If you can, you should get health insurance, right? You should get health insurance. They're very low cost, some low cost ones, but you also need to be careful about scams. So again, this is one that you want to talk to people about. A lot of people don't like to really talk about things like health insurance and stuff like that. But if you have a community of other immigrants who are from your country, make sure, community is very important, which is one of the things I thought it would be good to end with. community is very important. One of the things that helped me survive when I lived well, at the time I'm making this video, I'm still probably living in America, but when I lived in America, one of the things that really helped me was community, right? Just understanding that there was so much I didn't know. It was so difficult, but like just the fact that I had community and different people who were, you know, from different African countries and also from Nigeria, you know, helped me out was really, really helpful. So don't be an island. Don't think that, oh, I came to America myself, I can survive this. You can. You're strong, you're beautiful, you're amazing, but you need people. So on that note, I hope this video was very helpful for you. I'm going to go through my notes, no pun intended, just to make sure that I didn't lose anything. Oh, the last one I was going to talk about is never, ever, never, ever withdraw cash from your credit card. Don't do it. Don't do it. So on this note, tell me in the comments, I tried to stay on that 35 minutes. Tell me in the comments if you like this video, if there was any area, I kind of like tried to put so many things together, but if there was any area you want me to talk about, see, I'm happy to talk about it. All of the different videos I said, I promised that I would make. If you liked any particular one, let me know in the comments below. Bye.